People of the jury, I will now be introducing the next case, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs versus Evil Queen. I will be defending Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs against Her Majesty. First, I call Princess Snow White to the stands.
Put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand in the air. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Take a seat. Can you please recount for us what your life has been like since your father died?
Of course. Well, ever since Eve L. Queen married my father, even when he was still alive, she was still less than kind to me. And it got way worse after his passing. She forced me to dress and live like a scullery maid in order to serve her. I cooked and cleaned around the palace, a palace that should have been mine after my dad died. One day, I was out at the creek with the huntsman, and he was supposed to be teaching me the ways of the woods and how to live in the forest, except for I got down on my knees to take a drink of water, and I could feel him behind me. So, naturally, I turned around and saw him holding an axe, so I screamed. And then he lowered the axe, pointed to the side, said I can't, and told me to go, so I ran.
Objection! Hearsay!
Actually, we have evidence. Snow White, would you care to explain how we have all of this security footage?
Of course. A couple of weeks ago, I began to become suspicious of my stepmother's motives. And there were a lot of whispers around the kingdom saying that she was plotting my death. So in order to assure my safety, I had some of my best knights put up security cameras all around my kingdom. And shortly after they were put up, my confrontation with the huntsman occurred. And I would bet on my life that the queen is the one who hired him to kill me.
So she hired an assassin against you. That's really not something you see every day. It kind of reminds me of this one case, Commonwealth versus Kenneth Hughes, where this man hired this assassin in order to kill his wife for him. But anyways, do you mind if we play the footage?
Not at all.
Alright, if you would all turn your attention to the video. As you can see, the actions within this footage match up precisely with Snow White's story. As well as the confrontation at the creek, there were also many other times that the huntsman attempted to do his duty that was given to him by Evil Queen and kill Snow White. Here you can clearly see him about to take a swing at her when suddenly she turns around, foiling his plan. Here she quickly slides down the slide before he can attack her. And here he's chasing after her when suddenly he falls. I would like to revisit the point that Snow White brought up. She mentioned that the queen forced her to live as a scullery maid, when she in fact was the princess of this land. This is a case of psychological, mental, and physical abuse, in which case the government should have stepped in and taken Snow White away from this toxic situation, as stated in DeShaney versus Winnebago. So Snow White, would you consider yourself to have been physically and mentally abused by the queen?
Yes, I would. As a child, cleaning the entire castle every day was physically and mentally draining. Also, I was fed way less than a scullery maid should be. And I remember feeling so hungry that I actually thought my stomach was going to eat itself. Actually, all of this reminds me of a case I saw Eve L. watching on TV one day called U.S. versus Wade.
Was that a child abuse case?
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, your situation really reminds me of this case, Long versus U.S., where the girl's stepmother starved her as a form of punishment. Anyways, so after the huntsman told you to go, what happened? You ran and...
Well, I ran into the forest, and I ended up at this cute little cottage. I wanted to go inside, so I knocked, and nobody came, so I knocked again, and still nobody came, so I knocked a third time, and finally the door opened. So I looked inside, but I almost thought it was abandoned because it was so dirty. But then I saw some dirty dishes and socks, and so clearly somebody had to live there.
Okay, so then what happened?
Well, I decided that I would clean their house so that maybe when the owners came back they would let me stay, because clearly I had nowhere to go, and I didn't think that cleaning the house would do anybody any harm.
Okay, so you cleaned the entire house for them?
Yeah, and when I was done, I was so tired. I must have fallen asleep, but I don't remember much until the dwarves woke me up with their screaming. I think that they thought I was some kind of monster.
And what a perfect time to bring out my next witness. Thank you so much, Snow White. Grumpy Dwarf, will you please join me up here?
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand in the air. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear, faith, trust, and pixie dust. Do I really have to? This is such a waste of my time. I could be in the diamond mine right now. Someone does have a job to do, you know.
I do, Grumpy, and I'm just doing mine.
Okay, that's Mr. Grumpy to you.
So, Grumpy.
Mr. Grumpy.
Right. So, Mr. Grumpy, can you tell me what happened that day when you and your coworkers were coming home from work? The first time you met Snow White?
Well, we were coming home from the mine, and they were singing their hi-ho song as usual. And I was complaining about it, as usual. But then we noticed that, the front door to our house was open. So naturally, everyone started freaking out and whatnot. But then we convinced Dopey to go in there, and then he, ran out screaming there was a monster or something in there. But I decided to go in there because I was hungry and tired and, grumpy, and I was not about to let any monster steal my bed. So I went in there, and then it wasn't a monster. It was a lady. In fact, it was Snow White.
Then what happened?
Well, I called the other dwarves in, and at this point she started waking up from all, the screaming and whatnot. And then we introduced ourselves to her.
So you didn't think to file charges against her or anything? I mean, she was in your house.
No, no one ever locks the door, no matter how many times I tell them to. And besides, she cooked for us, and she cleaned the place, and, she did nothing wrong. Are we done here?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Grumpy.
Later.
Now I will call my next witness to the stands, Doc Dwarf.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand in the air. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. So, is it Mr. Dwarf or is it Doc?
I prefer Doc.
Alright, sure. Okay, so Doc, can you tell me about that next morning whenever you and your coworkers were going to work? The day that Snow White was poisoned, I mean.
Well, Sneezy, Sleepy, Dopey, Bashful, Grumpy, Happy, and myself, we were going to work in the mines like we do every day to pay for the rent for our cabin. And then Snow, the previous night, had told us about her stepmother, the evil queen, and how she hired an assassin, the huntsman, to kill her. And so we all had our suspicions and we were worried, but we just went on with our normal day. So when we were almost to the mine, I got this awful feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I told the other guys that we should turn around and go back and check on Snow. When we got back to the cabin, we saw an elderly lady running into the woods, and then Snow's body on the ground. The lady had stolen her life, the life she could have had with Prince Charming.
Theft by deception. That sounds exactly like that Jenkins versus Wachovia bank case. Anyways, where was the apple?
It was in her open hand, one bite taken from it.
Attempted murder by poison. That's really similar to that Montco poisoning case. Now, the fact that the apple is what poisoned Snow White could simply be considered speculation. I believe you, Doc, but let's just humor my counterparts. What makes you think that it was the apple and the queen that are responsible?
When Snow arrived, she was telling us about how her stepmother would always talk to this mirror about her evil plans. I know this sounds a little silly, but could you possibly interview the mirror to show that Snow is innocent and the evil queen did do it?
And that introduces my next witness. Thank you, Doc. I now call to the stands the magic mirror. Now I know that the people of the jury are sitting here looking at this mirror, seeing their own reflections and thinking that any woman who would talk to a mirror must be crazy and not conscious of her own choices. But observe this. Mirror, mirror on the wall, come out and talk to us all.
Yes.
Mirror, we would like to ask you a few questions about Eve L. Queen. Would that be all right?
Of course.
What is your relationship like with Eve L. Queen?
That woman is horrendously jealous of everyone and has been anything but kind to me the past 12 years of my service.
So we've all heard the rumor of her chant, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. Can you tell us the story behind that?
I guess it started when she married Snow White's father. When she found out that he had a little girl, she became obsessed with making sure that she was fairer and more beautiful than she was. Every day she would ask me with that annoying rhyme, and I would always say that she was more fair, until the day that Snow turned 18.
Which was earlier this year, am I correct?
You are.
So what happened when she asked you who was the fairest the day that Snow turned 18?
I must tell the truth. It's part of the curse that trapped me in this mirror, so I had to tell Eve that it was no longer her, it was Snow. That's when she went into a rage. She told me that she was going to get rid of Snow if it was the last thing that she did. So she hired a huntsman. When he brought her back a heart, she thought it was Snow's, so she came back to me and asked again who was the fairest of them all. And I still said Snow because the heart that the huntsman had brought her wasn't a human heart, it was the heart of a pig. When she was made aware of this, I watched her put together the potion into one of the old women and turn into an old woman who lived among the commoners in the kingdom.
So identity theft.
I suppose it would be.
She was aware of the fact that she was taking the identity of someone in the kingdom?
Yes, I suppose she thought Snow White might recognize the old woman and it would be easy to poison her.
According to Flores Figueroa versus U.S., if someone's aware that they're stealing the identity of someone else, then it's illegal. You just said, so it would be easier to poison her. Does this mean that she told you about her plot?
Yes, she did. She actually came up to me and asked where she could find the poisoned apples. I am ashamed to say that I told her where the orchard was located.
This reminds me of the case U.S. versus Ball, in which the accused convinced the victim to take poison by disguising it as something else.
That's exactly what happened. Eve used the apples as a disguise and had Snow eat it, not knowing what would happen.
Well, I think that pretty much takes care of that. Thank you, Mirror.
You're welcome.
Now that we're nearing the end of the case, I would like to take a moment to mention that if the jury were to find the Queen guilty enough to sentence her to the death penalty, according to Bays versus Rees, the lethal injection was ruled constitutional and would be an appropriate method. We're not pushing solely for the death penalty, but it is an option. Now, even though Snow White was not actually killed from the threats and attempts by Evil Queen, she was simply put under a sleeping spell, attempted murder is still unconstitutional and deserving of a prison sentence, according to Tennessee versus Kevin Anthony Dixon. Your Honor, I rest my case.